Hello everyone, this is Jack. Well, in this video I'm going to cover how you can keep your fresh vegetables fresh for a really long time. Now I'm going to cover different types of vegetables, the leafy greens, herbs, vegetables that like dry storage such as onions, potatoes, sweet potatoes, and also vegetables that need to be in the fridge. So let's get started. First, I'm starting with some herbs. I got some basil here from our garden. I also got some sage here from our garden as well. The very first thing you want to do with your herbs, whether you grow them in your garden or you get them from a grocery store, is create a bunch. Quite a few stems of basil, making a bunch, and then place them on a cutting board and make a 45-degree cut. So I'm doing the same with sage here, and this makes sure that the stems of herbs intake enough water while sitting on the counter. You can add these herbs to your refrigerator. However, the life of herbs in a refrigerator is not as long as on a counter. Simply get glasses of water, and I only add about an inch of water. Place your basil and your sage and other herbs in the glasses. I only add about an inch because I don't want the leaves to be submerged in water. If the leaves are submerged, they will start rotting. Next, place the glasses containing your herbs on a kitchen counter or next to a window, and they will stay fresh for up to 3 weeks. Next up, leafy greens. Now I have some kale here and some lettuce, and this is true for all leafy greens. It includes Swiss chard, mustard leaves, spinach, and all the leafy greens. Now they usually come in these plastic bags. If you leave them in these plastic bags and put them in a refrigerator, they don't even last a week. So the way to make them last longer is to first take them out of these plastic bags. So I got some lettuce here and I have some kale. You can break apart the leaves of lettuce and you can separate the leaves of kale and then give them a good wash. After washing, you can just simply roll them in a paper towel or a kitchen towel and then place them in the refrigerator. This way, the leafy greens will stay fresh for at least 2 weeks. Next up, mushrooms. However, mushrooms are technically not vegetables. However, I'll include them in this video since most of us use mushrooms with our vegetables. When you get mushrooms from the store, take them out of a plastic container. Do not wash mushrooms before storing. Just take a regular kitchen towel, place the mushrooms in the kitchen towel, make a ball, and then store it in your fridge. To store chilies, use an open container and line the container with paper towel or kitchen towel. Add your chilies to the container. You can always pre-wash your chilies before adding to the container. Once the chilies have been added to the container, you can place the container in the fridge and the chilies will remain fresh for up to 2 to 3 weeks. Next up, eggplants. When you bring your eggplants home, wash your eggplants thoroughly. Get an open container like this one and line your container with a kitchen towel or a paper towel. Let the eggplants sit on the kitchen counter until they're dry and then add them to your container. You can do the same thing with okra. However, do not wash okra until you're ready to prepare and eat okra because okra will go soggy and moldy real quick. Store dry okra in an open container lined with kitchen towel or paper towel. Add the container to the fridge and your eggplant and okra will remain fresh for up to 2 weeks. To store asparagus so that it lasts much longer, give asparagus a fresh cut by cutting bottom ½ inch of the asparagus. Fill a bowl with water and place your asparagus right side up in the bowl and place it in your fridge. And asparagus will remain fresh for up to 2 weeks. Next up, cauliflower. Now cauliflower usually comes in these plastic wraps. Now if you keep them in these plastic wraps, they might get these black spots. They will not last very long in these plastic wraps, even in the fridge. So the best way to store cauliflower is to first remove them from the plastic wrap, then cut up the cauliflower, keep the parts that you want to utilize, then add them to a glass container and then cover with an airtight lid. Keep the cauliflower in glass container in the fridge and it will remain fresh for up to 2 weeks. Next up, beets. Now when you buy beets from a grocery store, they usually come with their greens intact. Now the reason why they sell them with their greens is first, if you cut off the greens, the beets will stain. Secondly, the beets will not last much longer without their greens. So do not cut off the greens. You're staining your fridge or anything the beet might touch. By the way, the beet greens are edible. You can saute them with your potatoes and eat them just like you would eat kale or Swiss chard. Wrap your beets with a kitchen towel or a paper towel in an open container with greens intact and just store them in your fridge. This way, the beets will last up to 1 month. Next up, potatoes and onions. Now you can store the potatoes and onions in a cool, dark place in your pantry or in a cabinet. Just make sure you keep your potatoes away from onions because onions produce ethylene gas, which makes the potatoes sprout. You can also store your sweet potatoes in a cool, dark place in your pantry. Sweet potatoes, and onions will last in your pantry for up to 3 months and even longer if kept in a cool, dark, and dry place. If you have potatoes that are large in size and you cut them and you don't want to eat the whole potato, you can peel and store the rest of the potatoes in a glass mason jar filled with water as well. And the potatoes will remain fresh up to 5 days. Cut potatoes left on a kitchen counter or even placed in a fridge will turn brown or even black. However, if you cut the potatoes and keep them in mason jars filled with water and place the jar in the fridge, and cut potatoes will stay fresh for up to a week and they're ready to use whenever you need to cook with them. If you have a big onion and you only use a part of an onion, you can store the rest of the onion wrapped in a saran wrap in a fridge. Or you can peel the onion completely and then slice the onion to desired sizes, add them to a glass mason jar, fill it with water, and store it in a refrigerator as well. Now, if you keep onions in jars in water in fridge like this, never eat fresh onions from this. Always cook your onions because there's always a chance of any bacterial growth with onions in fridge. So always cook these onions before eating. Next, carrots. Now, to store the whole carrots for a long time, wrap the whole carrots into a damp paper towel or a kitchen towel and then place the carrots into the coldest part of the fridge. If you want to pre-prepare your carrots and store the cut carrots, peel the carrots, cut the carrots to sizes, add the carrots to a glass mason jar and then fill the jars with water. Place the jar in the fridge. This way the cut carrots will remain fresh for up to 3 weeks. Next up, ginger. Now, a whole uncut ginger will stay on a kitchen counter or in a pantry for up to 1 to 2 months. If you want to prolong the shelf life of ginger, you can always store ginger in a Ziploc bag in a refrigerator. This way, the ginger will last for up to 3 months. If you use a part of ginger and the ginger is already cut, you can also store the rest of the ginger in a Ziploc bag in a fridge. Or you can peel the entire ginger, cut it into slices, put it in a glass jar, fill the jar with water, and then place the jar in fridge. This way, the cut ginger will last up to 3 to 4 weeks, and you can always use the ginger water in your soups and your tea. Next up, cucumber. Now, the best way to store a whole cucumber is to wrap the cucumber in a damp paper towel or in a kitchen towel, and then insert the cucumber into a plastic bag. Place the cucumber in the fridge, and cucumber will last up to 3 to 4 weeks. If you have a cut cucumber or you want to store pre-cut cucumber, cut the cucumber to sizes, add the cucumber to glass mason jar, and then fill the jar with water. Close the jar and you can place this in a refrigerator. This way, the cucumber is already cut and ready to use and will remain fresh for up to 5 days. You can also cut and store these vegetables in glass mason jar ahead of time if you run in a time crunch to prepare your meal. You can always use the water from these vegetables as vegetable broth in your soups as well. Next, avocados. Now, avocados are technically not vegetables, they are a fruit. However, according to culinary standards, they are considered a vegetable since we consume them with vegetables. So I'm including avocados in this video. When you bring avocados home from the grocery store, take the avocados out of the wrapper, and if the avocados are not ripe, you can just store them on your kitchen counter next to fruit. Keep checking your avocados. The best way to tell if they are ripe is if the stem falls over. So if you wiggle on this stem and it doesn't come out, the avocado is not ready yet. However, if you wiggle on the stem and the stem does come out and it's brown, the avocado is ripe and ready, and now you can place the ripe avocados in the fridge. Ripe avocados do not stay fresh on kitchen counter for long. Next up, pumpkins and squashes. Now you can store your hard shell or hard pumpkins and squashes on a kitchen counter or even in a pantry next to potatoes. Pumpkins and hard squashes such as spaghetti squash and butternut squash can easily last in a pantry in a cool, dark and dry place for 3 months or even longer. They can even last 6 months and up to a year. If you do cut open a hard shell pumpkin or a squash and you need to store the rest, wrap them in a saran wrap plastic wrapper and then add them to the fridge. The soft squash need to be refrigerated, and you can just place the squash in a high humidity container in your fridge and they will remain fresh for up to 2 weeks. Now, tomatoes are also not considered a vegetable. They're technically a fruit. However, I'll cover them in this video. Tomatoes are easy to store. You can just wash your tomatoes and store them in the fridge in an open container. You can store your tomatoes on a kitchen countertop. However, they last much longer in the fridge. So it's been 5 days. Let's check the veggies. So here I have the carrot from the jar. It's nice and cold and fresh, and it seems really crunchy. Really nice crunch to it. It's like the first day I cut it, that's how it's like, it's so fresh. Next, let me try these cucumbers and see how they are like as well. So, I'm going to grab one. Looks really fresh as well. Really nice crunch. So fresh. We put the potatoes. Now, usually, potatoes would turn brown if you keep them, at least even for a day, if you keep them in the fridge or on the counter. Look at these potatoes, they're fresh and they're absolutely crunchy. Let's look at the onions. Well, check them out. These onions look really fresh and really good way to store them. And this way, the onions will not create this onion smell in your fridge either. Now it's been 7 days, so let's check up on the rest of our veggies and see how they are doing. Well, let's check up on asparagus. Asparagus is looking really fresh. It's staying hydrated, that's why. And all of the tips are really fresh. There's a little bit of wilting on the tips, but after 7 days, a little bit is expected. The tomatoes are doing really good. They've been in the fridge for 2 weeks. They were already in the fridge for a week when I started making the video. And all of these tomatoes are still really fresh. Some of them are a little bit soft, but that is expected. But they're still fresh and really good eating. Here's the cauliflower that I got 2 days ago, and I did not store it in the glass container. I kept it in the plastic wrap, and it's already getting these black spots. Now, let's check our cauliflower that I put in the glass container. All of this cauliflower still looks really fresh. It is getting a couple of these little black spots on there, but overall it's looking really good and really fresh, been in the fridge for 7 days. Now let's check the half-cut onion that I put in the saran wrap. So let's open this up, and it's looking really good. There is some dryness on the onion. However, overall, it's looking really good. If you like, you can slice off the dryness, or you can just peel it and just use it like this. It's really fresh and good to use. The potatoes, sweet potatoes, hard squashes, and pumpkins are also doing really good in the pantry as well, since they're kept in a cool, dark, dry place. These onions that I kept separate are doing fabulous, and all of these dry vegetables are going to do well for up to 2 months. Now let's check the mushrooms. These mushrooms are looking really good. Usually they will get soft, but these are not soft at all. They're still pretty firm. Usually mushrooms don't even last this long. Usually mushrooms don't last 7 to 10 days, but they're doing really good and they're really firm. There's a little bit of discoloration there, but they're really fresh and really good eating. Let's check the kale and the lettuce. Let's first open up the kale. Well, look at this. Can you say this kale has been in the fridge for 7 days? This looks so fresh. All of this kale is still looking really fresh after 7 days. Here's some lettuce. Well, look at these lettuce leaves. They don't even look like they've been in there for 7 days. They look so fresh. They're still very crispy and really good eating. Basil and sage are doing absolutely amazing next to a window. I make sure I have an inch of water at the bottom, and I change the water every 3 to 4 days. The okra, eggplant, and chilies, they're also doing really good. Usually they will last in the fridge for up to a week no matter what, so that's not really surprising. And look at the beets. The beets are also doing really good, and the greens are still fresh as well. Make sure to utilize these greens when you prepare your beets. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Wait a minute, I was just about to post this video. I just been trying to find some time to edit this video and post this video, and it's been 20 days. And the veggies are still looking pretty good in the fridge. We ate quite a few of them. So let me show you what's left and the condition they are in. Well, let's first look at the herbs. The sage is doing really good. It's really healthy. And look at the basil. The basil is already making roots. In about 3 weeks, the basil starts making roots, and you can actually plant this in your garden and grow more basil plants. Here I have some lettuce. This is the lettuce that I just stuck in the fridge without any paper wrap. And look at this. It's starting to kind of like rust out, kind of wilt out. It's still not as bad, you know, but it's definitely looking a little bit wilty. But let's check out the lettuce that's been in the paper towel rolls. Look at this. Looks really fresh. Little bit of it, that little brownish, but not as much. A lot of these leaves are looking real fresh, and there's a little bit of wilt, but not as much as the one that I just stuck in the fridge. The asparagus is still doing really good. It is trying to little bit dry off at the ends, but it's still very edible and looking really good. The kale is kind of getting yellowish on the tips, so can't go any much longer than 20 days with kale. Well, these vegetables in the jars are looking really good, except the cucumbers. The cucumbers have turned into mush, so let's discard these. I have these potatoes that I put in the fridge just 2 days ago, and that's what they look like. That's how they turn brownish like this in the fridge when they're cut. Look at these potatoes in the jar. Let me grab a couple. Look at this. Look at the difference between a 20-day-old potato and a 2-day-old potato. A lot of these are doing good too. The onions, the carrot, and my favorite, ginger. I've been adding more water in the ginger jar, and I've been using it to make my tea as well. And let's give it a quick check for the carrots. Carrots are still good. It's 20 days. Amazing. Let's look at the onions. Well, the onions don't look the most healthy, but maybe they're still edible, but I wouldn't take a risk. Ginger, no doubt about it. Ginger is good to go. Well, let's look at the beets. The beets are looking good. They're a little bit soft. There's a little bit of give to them, so they are not as fresh. The beet greens, they still look edible, not as fresh, but looks like you can still saute them and eat them. All the chilies are still looking good. They're a little bit wilted out, a little bit softer than fresh chilies. Still edible, no mold. Eggplants are doing fantastic. After 20 days, these are keeping really good. Okra is also doing very good. Not as fresh, but after 20 days, it's a good result. And here's what's left of that onion that I wrapped. Let's open this up. It has dried out a little bit. There's whitish dryness on the onion, but still usable. Well, of course, all the squash and pumpkins are doing really good. Sweet potatoes and potatoes are doing good as well. These can last months. I have a separate video on 7 vegetables that you can add to your pantry that will last more than 3 months. So check that out if you're interested. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you can keep your vegetable fresh for a really long time. And I'll see you in another video.